All right, today we're cracking open the playbook from Dr. Ari Masoudi, a molecular biologist who's become the secret weapon for the beauty industry's top clinics. We're not just talking about standard patient care here. We are diving deep into the neuroscience that can take your practice from just good to absolutely unforgettable. So let me start with a question, and this is for all you top-tier practitioners out there. Is your patient experience a one-size-fits-all kind of deal? I mean, think about it. If you're giving the nervous first-timer the exact same treatment journey as the confident regular, you are leaving a massive, massive opportunity on the table. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll break down the real cost of that uniform approach. Then we'll get into how to fine-tune the patient's emotional journey with some cool sensory strategies. After that, we'll introduce you to the two patient profiles you absolutely have to know: transformers and maintainers. We'll even pinpoint the perfect scientific moment to upsell. And finally, we'll wrap it all up in a simple step-by-step playbook. Okay, first up, the one-size-fits-all mistake. It's one of those subtle problems that's probably costing elite clinics way more than they even realize. Here's the heart of the issue. A standardized process completely ignores what the patient is actually feeling, right? You've got one person walking into your clinic absolutely buzzing with excitement. They're looking for a life-changing transformation. The very next person might come in with this quiet anxiety, just hoping for a subtle tweak so they don't look overdone. When you treat them both the same way, same greetings, same lighting, same script, you create this emotional disconnect. And that little disconnect, it can affect everything from their satisfaction to whether they ever come back. So, how do we fix this? How do we bridge that emotional gap? Well, the answer is to stop thinking in terms of standard service and start thinking with a deliberate sensory strategy. And the core concept here is something called sensory targeting. This isn't just a fancy term, it's about using your clinic's environment as a precision tool. We're talking about strategically using sounds, lights, even scents to gently guide your patient toward a specific feeling, either excitement or calm, whatever is perfectly tailored to them. So what does that look like? Well, for the patient who's seeking a big transformation, you crank up the energy. You use brighter visual displays, more upbeat music, and you use language that promises bold, dramatic change. But for the patient who's more focused on maintenance, you do the opposite. You create a sanctuary, softer lighting, calming scents, and reassuring language that's all about subtle, natural-looking results. You're basically tuning the environment to their brain chemistry. And this brings us to the two psychological profiles that are going to become the absolute cornerstone of your new strategy. We call them transformers and maintainers. On one hand, you have your transformers. These are your high stimulation seekers. They get excited by what's new, what's bold. They want to see those dramatic before and afters, and they thrive in a high-energy, visually engaging environment. On the other hand, you have the maintainers. They want comfort, familiarity. They're motivated by preserving what they have with just a little refinement. They're going to prefer quiet, private spaces and calm, reassuring language. Just figuring out which one is sitting in your chair is the single most critical first step. But you might be thinking, okay, this sounds good, but does it actually work? Well, the data is pretty clear. One clinic that put this exact segmentation strategy into practice saw its treatment acceptance rate shoot up to 76%. 76! That's a massive leap from the industry average of 58%. So yeah, this isn't just theory, it's a proven model for serious growth. All right, now let's get into how this applies to expanding your services, or what a lot of people just call the upsell, but there's a real science to it. This entire strategy really hinges on one crucial piece of neuroscience. It turns out our brains aren't just open to new ideas all the time. But during these very specific moments of peak positive emotion, the reward centers in our brain just light up. And that makes us way more open to new suggestions. Honestly, the timing of your recommendation is, quite literally, everything. So here's the key takeaway. The absolute best time to suggest another treatment is not during that initial analytical consultation. No. The optimal moment is what we call the satisfaction moment. It's that split second when the patient sees their amazing results in the mirror for the very first time. That is their emotional peak. And that's when you say, this looks incredible. Now that we've addressed this, have you ever considered? And the impact of getting this timing right, it's staggering. Recommendations made during this emotional peak have a 2.3 times higher acceptance rate than suggestions made during a normal consultation. Think about that. Just by changing when you have the conversation, you can more than double your effectiveness. It's a game changer. Okay, so we've covered the why and the what. Now for the best part. Let's pull this all together into a simple, actionable playbook that you can start putting into practice, like tomorrow. It really just boils down to 3 steps. Step 1, train your entire staff, and I mean everyone, to identify whether a new patient is a transformer or a maintainer, ideally within the first 5 minutes they're there. Step 2, create 2 totally separate consultation scripts. One uses that bold, exciting, aspirational language for your transformers. The other uses calm, reassuring, subtle language for your maintainers. And finally, step 3, be patient. Wait for that magic satisfaction moment after the treatment before you introduce any new ideas. You see, this playbook takes your practice beyond just providing a service. It's about strategically designing an experience. It's about meeting your patients exactly where they are, both emotionally and psychologically. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Now that you have the playbook for an truly elite patient experience, what's the very first change you're going to make?